Hello and welcome to Gardening at 58 North. In this video I'd like to introduce you to a couple of new plants that I've recently acquired. So starting with the one on the right, this is actually a type of begonia. I think it's a type of Begonia Rex and it's got some fantastic colour. I saw this when I was gardening Scotland back in June. Now I've seen a few plants with red and black on their foliage, but I've never seen one quite as striking as this begonia here. So the variety is called Begonia Vesuvius, basically like the volcano. Picture's pretty much the same as the how the leaves look here. So yes, it's named after Vesuvius, which is obviously the famous mountain in Italy where Pompeii is, and I suppose they chose that because it does look like lava. When I first saw it, I actually kind of thought of volcanoes myself because it kind of looks like lava and black obsidian. So Vesuvius is quite a good name for it. They obviously just called it Vesuvius because it's quite a famous volcano. What you can see there, it really is a true black and it really is a true red. Now it did have a bit of powdery mildew. You can see on this one it's a bit infected. There's a few kind of paler white patches, that's powdery mildew. I have treated it so it doesn't seem to be spreading anymore, but it has damaged it a bit so it doesn't look as nice as it did originally. But this lower leaf down here certainly seems to have got away without being too damaged. And it's just remarkable how truly black it is and how truly red it is. There's no green on it whatsoever. I think if this was kept in low light it would probably revert back to green, but it's looking quite good at the moment. The back of the leaves are quite similar to most begonias, it's just kind of like a dark burgundy red purpley colour. But the leaves themselves on the front, as I say, there's really nice mottling. It does seem to vary, different leaves have different patterns, but it's generally, they've got red splodges on a black background. I've got a couple of new leaves starting to shoot up as well. But it's quite a small plant, it's still quite young I think. The leaves should get a lot larger, it'll be quite interesting to see how big the leaves will get. And as it's a Begonia Rex, there should also be some flowers, but the flowers on Begonia Rex aren't the main attraction, it's really the giant leaves that are more attractive. So I'm looking forward to more leaves. I'll be giving it a high nitrogen feed anyway to get larger leaves. And I might try and give it a little bit more light. I'll see how it does. At the moment, the light levels are kind of moderate. If it starts to kind of go paler, I might give it a bit more sun. But generally with Begonia Rex, you don't need to give it much sunlight. They're quite well suited to dark conditions. Although being a highly variegated one like this, it might not be quite as good in dark conditions as your average Begonia Rex. But it'll be interesting to see how this does for me. As I say, I bought it back in June. It hasn't really grown a huge amount in the last month or so. Only had a couple of new leaves and they're still only just coming up now. So I'll see how it does. I'll give you guys an update on this as the year progresses. The other plant I've got here is a plant I've wanted for quite a while. That's the Madagascan Palmer. Latin name is Pachypodium lamerei. The spelling of the Latin there. It's quite an interesting plant. You see, it's out of the Pachypodiums, it's the most commonly found one. There's loads of different species of Pachypodium. This is the most commonly found one in garden centres anyway. It's still not, you won't find it in every garden centre, but it's getting more common these days. It's quite popular, especially as there seems to be more people getting interested in succulents and cacti. So this is basically a succulent. It's quite an interesting one though because it has leaves but it looks like a cactus. So basically it looks like a cactus but with leaves. What it is a succulent. It's not actually a cactus or anything like that. It's from I believe Madagascar, and there's also a lot of other Pachypodiums in Africa, in the southern parts of Africa, although this one I think is from Madagascar itself. So it basically fills a very similar niche to the cactus does over in America. Has spines to protect itself because it's got, what it does is it stores up all its moisture inside the stem, so it doesn't want any insects or maybe herbivores coming along and eating it. So it has these spines to stop any kind of grazing animals. And it does have leaves. The leaves are deciduous, so if it goes into its dormant phase it will quite often drop its leaves. In a household environment, with it not being such extreme conditions, quite often it keeps its leaves year round, but it can sometimes drop them as well if it gets quite cold in the winter. So I'll be keeping this growing over summer, and then come winter I'll probably put it into a dormant phase. It just depends how much light we get. I find if you keep things that can go dormant growing in Scotland over winter, they get very leggy because there's so little sunlight, they really do suffer. So we putting this on a nice sunny windowsill. It does tend to be quite thirsty over the summer, even though it's a succulent. It does drink a lot. What it does in the wild is the rain's very scarce. When it does come, it's very heavy, and then it puts on a really big growth spurt. Stores as much moisture as it can in its stem, really grows very fast, and then it sits for the rest of the year, kind of semi-dormant, or completely loses its leaves and goes completely dormant. And that helps it to conserve water. So it's a good kind of trade-off with cacti in that they can never go into a very rapid phase of growth because they don't have large leaves. They've just got the small stems. Pachypodium here has a good trade-off. When the weather's good, it can put out big leaves. It can make the most of all the sunshine, grow really fast. And if it conserve water, it can drop all its leaves and just be like a cactus and have a succulent stem. So we'll be repotting this. I did actually get this back in, I think, March or maybe even February. So I've had this a long time. And it was much smaller when I first bought it. You can see there's kind of like really big leaves and quite small leaves. So when I first got it, it only had these tiny leaves down the bottom, so it was probably half the size, and it's more than doubled in height since I've got it in the last few months. As you can see, the plant pot is really small, so it definitely needs repotting. So I'll go ahead now and put it in a larger pot. So when it comes to repotting this, I will be wearing a glove, because the spines are quite spiky. They're not as bad as normal cactus spines. You can see there's quite a bit of flex in them, and they're not super sharp, but I'm still going to avoid touching them as much as I can. Also, the sap on this is quite poisonous, so I'm going to take out the label and have a look at how the roots look. So there it is out of the pot. It was actually really difficult to pull out. I had to loosen it up quite a bit. You can see the roots there, really very pot bound. They were kind of spiraling around, gripping onto the pot. The roots on this species are actually very well adapted to absorb moisture very fast. They kind of have they're quite kind of furry on them, and they can, as soon as there's any moisture, they'll absorb it really quick. I do find that when I water this plant, it really doesn't take long at all for it to suddenly to soak up all the water. Literally, I can give it a good soaking in the morning. In the afternoon, the compost can be bone dry again because it drinks so fast. So I'm going to be putting it in the 9cm pot now. Compost mix I'm using is basically a very free draining mix. There's a little bit of multi-purpose compost in there as well though, because as I say, this does like quite a lot of moisture in summer, so it'll be drinking a lot, so I need something that can hold on to a little bit of moisture. I think a cactus mix would work, but it would probably be a little bit dry for optimum growth. It would still grow, but it just wouldn't grow quite as fast. So what will be quite tricky with this is the spines and the leaves are going to make it very difficult for me to pour the compost in. But I'll do my best and see if I can get as much of this in as possible. What I think I'll use is a funnel, because it's that tight in here. It's going to be quite difficult to get any of the compost in without using a funnel. So that's it now potted up. It was quite tricky trying to get the compost in, as the pot wasn't a huge amount bigger than the existing pot. I can show you there, it is probably 4 times the size, but diameter wise it was a very thin amount of space to get this compost in, especially with all the leaves and the spines in the way. But if I was to go for a much wider pot, the issue I would have with having a much larger area of compost for the moisture, what would happen is it would stay quite wet until the roots of the Pachypodium have got down into the compost. They would stay quite wet in between waterings, and it could have issues with rot. So I didn't want to go into a really big jump up in pot size. And that's something that I do quite often. If it's a succulent or a cactus, something that likes to be quite dry, I never go into a big upgrade in the pot, because what will happen is that it will stay too wet for too long and it could be suffering from rot. So that's it from this video update. I'll say I've got my Pachypodium here, and I've also got my Begonia Vesuvius here. So it'll be interesting to see how they do for me. This should put on quite a bit of growth over the summer, and then it'll slow down, maybe even lose its leaves in winter. Begonia, I'm just going to have to play around a bit with the light levels, see if it needs a bit more, see if it needs a bit less, and hopefully I can get some good giant leaves growing of this as well.